Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Lockdown is a tactical first-person shooter that was developed and published by Ubisoft and released on the PlayStation 2, Xbox and Gamecube in June of 2005. Lockdown was the fourth game in the series and was the first Rainbow Six to be primarily made for console. This was a controversial move at the time, and there were some changes made to the gameplay to make it more accessible to newcomers. When the game hit store shelves, it was met with a bit of negativity from long-term fans and received mixed reviews from most publications. Rainbow Six Lockdown takes place in the far-flung future of 2009, and the game is centered around a counter-terrorist unit named Rainbow, which is comprised of the absolute best of the best from around the world. The story kicks off with a terrorist organisation named the Global Liberation Front breaking into a lab in South Africa and stealing a man-made virus named Legion that, when released in the air, does this to people. The Rainbow team is then tasked with travelling from country to country to hunt down various members of the GLF to stop this group from wreaking havoc on the world with this deadly virus. The single player breaks down into 16 missions of terrorist hunting, bomb defusing and hostage rescuing first-person action. You control the team leader named Ding Chavez as you and your team work your way through a variety of linear urban environments, taking down hordes of terrorists along the way. The gameplay is mostly what you'd expect from a game released in this period bearing the Tom Clancy name. It is a lot of careful movement and peeking around corners as opposed to the usual FPS running and gunning. You can give your team members orders on where to take cover, or provide suppressing fire, and breaching and clearing a room, and for the most part they do perform their tasks pretty well, and do a decent job of taking down enemies alongside you. There are a lot of options that allow you to decide how you want to approach a mission. You can choose and customise your primary and secondary weapon, and select from a range of equipment such as flashbangs, breaching charges and sledgehammers. This is all sort of standard fare for a Rainbow Six title, and does give you the feeling that you can choose your playstyle. The problem with all of this is that the game feels a little too easy, and doesn't put you in situations where the equipment and tactical options at your disposal are really worth using. This could be because it was targeted at a console market and the developers felt they needed to water down the experience in order to not create a huge barrier to entry. But the result of these changes is a game that isn't challenging or very tactical. This is not to say that there are zero consequences for taking the all guns blazing approach. You're not afforded many hits before you're taken down for good. If one of your team members takes enough hits, then it is a wrap for them until the end of the mission, and if you're a little too trigger happy, then you can end up making the same mistake I did and murder a member of your team. Rainbow Six Lockdown is still fun to play, and the missions are pretty short and sweet, so it doesn't drag on long enough to feel monotonous, but it definitely feels like it is lacking in a few areas. A lot of this could be helped by the AI of the enemies. They are pretty much just a shooting gallery that sometimes run head-on into gunfire. If they were a little smarter, took cover more often, and were slightly more accurate, it would add some much-needed tension to the game that could go a long way. Now, visually, I always felt that apart from the Splinter Cell series, most Tom Clancy games of this generation were fairly mediocre, and sadly, Rainbow Six Lockdown is no different. It is by no means ugly, but certainly looks a little rough in places. Weapon models and character models of the Rainbow team look sharp, but the same cannot be said for the enemies, and there are a number of fuzzy textures throughout the game. Voice acting is solid, although 90% of it is just one-liners over a radio, and the sound design of the weapons and explosives are nice and punchy. I did enjoy the cutscenes that play in between some of the missions, as they add more context and flavour to the missions that can be completely devoid of any narrative or personality. Overall, Rainbow Six Lockdown is a game that feels like it can't decide what it wants to be. It is clear that the developers tried to craft a tactical experience that was also accessible to newcomers playing on console. Unfortunately, the final product is a game that is too easy and shallow for the tactical hardcore fanbase, and is not fast and fun enough for the more casual first-person shooter fan. Is this game one of the best in its genre? No, not at all. However, I would be wrong to say that there is no fun to be had at all if you're a fan of tactical shooters, and Rainbow Six is possibly the definition of a 3-star game.